The red light is going, and I'm sitting here with Matt Hawkins of Witchblade, and we're going to talk some awesome graphic art. So, Matt, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about the origins of this character?
Well, Witchblade was created 25 years ago, and that's why we're doing this campaign. Is it's actually the 25th anniversary of the character. It was created by Marc Silvestri, Brian Haberlin, Michael Turner, and David Wohl back in 1995, and it's been Top Cow's longest-running character, and it's arguably the second most prominent female superhero behind Wonder Woman. It's had the most longest, concurrent series, and there was a TV show on TNT in 2000, 2001, and there was a Japanese animated series that was in Japan in 2004 and 2005 that was translated and brought back to the United States. So it's had other media opportunities as well, and it's been consistently published for us for the entire 25 years. So it's probably our biggest character by far.
For sure. So give us, for those of us that aren't necessarily fans of the comic or know the character, give us a little sense of who she is as a character and what her origin is.
The easiest way I explain it is it's NYPD Blue meets the X-Files. It's a woman who is a homicide detective, and she comes in contact and bears this mystical artifact. It's initially just a little bracelet that snaps to her wrist. And in the original comic origin, she found it at the Rialto Theater in New York, and it sort of called to her. The idea of it is the Witchblade is an artifact that it chooses a woman of every generation to be its wielder, and historically that includes a lot of powerful women like Joan of Arc, Nefertiti, a lot of famous women in history. We've sort of retconned the history to include that they had the Witchblade, and that's why they were so powerful. The idea of the Witchblade is it's tied into the whole Top Cow universe, where there is the darkness, the Witchblade, and the Angelus. The darkness is the power of the dark, Angelus is the power of the light, and the Witchblade is intended to be the balance between the two forces, meaning that if one of those two sides ever becomes dominant, it essentially means the end of mankind.
Right on. So, you see, this character has been around for about 25 years. Give us a sense of how big the legacy audience is for this book and this character.
Well, we've probably, I don't have exact figures. I figured it out about 10 years ago. And at that point, we'd sold about 500 million books. So that's a lot. I mean, it's far and away our most prominent character. It's one of the most popular and long-term characters from Image Comics, which would include Spawn and a few others, Walking Dead.
Right.
So it's part of a heritage that we're really proud of. And Michael Turner, who was the artist of the original arc, sadly passed away from cancer about 10 years ago. And so this is the 25th anniversary, but it's a bit bittersweet for us because one of the original guys who helped design and make it as popular as this is no longer with us, and he died in his 30s.
Oh wow, well, that's too bad. So the project here, give us a sense of what you hope to accomplish with the 25th anniversary edition. Like what kind of merch and what kind of deliverables are involved in this?
Well, there's all kinds of different pledge tiers. The main thing that we're getting people to pledge is a distinctive Kickstarter wraparound dust jacket hardcover of the first Witchblade compendium, which includes like the first 18 issues of Witchblade and a few spin-off books. So it's kind of the original stuff. It's not been republished in a considerable amount of time. So it's a unique package, and we've got a lot of merch on the outside of it. Most of the backers are just getting the book, but there are T-shirts, there are keychains, there are buttons, and we have multiple stretch goals. I mean, for us, Kickstarter is a little different. We look at Kickstarter as a distribution outlet. It's not a lot of independent creators and smaller people will use Kickstarter as, hey, please help my dream come true so I can publish my book. Our thing is we already published the book. It comes out in multiple formats, and we're distributing this in all of our different channels. It'll be out in the comic book stores. It'll be available in the bookstores, on Amazon, through our own stores, through conventions. But what we're also doing is offering it to the Kickstarter audience with an exclusive dust jacket that wraps around the hardcover, and it's like 680 pages. It's a 4-pound book. It's huge, and it's we actually just had them delivered to our warehouse yesterday. So I was actually shocked at how heavy it was. So it's a fun thing, and we've already had. I haven't looked at the update, but I think we have like 800 backers already, and we're already over 500% of our goal.
Yeah.
Closing in at 600% of our goal, so it's all very exciting.
Yeah, with about 10 days left. So let's talk a little bit about your Kickstarter strategy. Are most of the people that are coming to the Kickstarter a baked-in fan base of Witchblade, or are there new people discovering it?
I think it's probably mainly existing fans, and it might be a Kickstarter. This is our 9th Kickstarter, and I think we've built kind of an audience around it. And I think once, there's a lot of people that don't like crowdfunding because the rewards never show up, or they're broken, or whatever it is. My ex-wife used to buy a lot of these things on Kickstarter, like tech stuff, like headphones and stuff like that, and she used to complain that she'd get about half of it, and the other half would just mysteriously never materialize. And so. Yeah. Because we've fulfilled all our rewards always, and we've had some issues with shipping and stuff being broken, and we've replaced it. We've tried to do customer service as best we can.
Right.
So we've built up a bit of an audience through Kickstarter. To me, they're existing fans because our first Kickstarter was in 2011.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's one of the best practices of Kickstarter. There's not only the best practices of launching a successful campaign, but there's a whole series of best practices of delivering. So, if you ever want to hope of, this just for everybody out there, if you ever want a chance of doing this again, you really have to do fulfillment properly. And, more and more, we're talking to companies like you guys that are using Kickstarter as this distribution model, or this channel for exclusive content or exclusive products, and having that full faith and confidence of delivery on time, or in a reasonable amount of time in great condition is how you can do that.
No, we've certainly been late a few times, and not for lack of intent, but one of the things I always tell people is if you're going to be late, just communicate it,
Exactly.
And that's what the updates are for. You can email people directly, and if we're late or we have a problem on things, and sometimes we've had instances where the stuff, like some of the merch that we developed, we finally got it shipped to us from the company that we did it, and it was crap or it was broken, and then we've offered substitutions for different things. So you just got to kind of figure out what your strategy is, and talk to your fans. And I found that most people are pretty reasonable. There's always going to be that one person that's not. Give them their money back and move on. I mean, that's sort of my thought on it, is if they're complaining, and some people you can never make happy.
Well, that is the general social contract of crowdfunding, is that as a backer, we're willing to pledge money up front and have a certain delay in delivery, because not only do we like what the creator is developing, but we believe in the creator's mission, right?
Right.
So that's as long as the creator never breaks that good faith, you'll continue to have backers support you, even through delays, even through issues, because a lot of times, it's not only do multiple creators view this as a distribution method for exclusive rewards, but it's also a way to scale up. And usually your second, your third, your fourth are going to be bigger campaigns. And it's a really best practice to continue that communication through updates, and talk about some of the challenges you find when you're scaling up, maybe beyond what you've ever produced. So, the success of the campaign sometimes does offer up some new challenges and new opportunities. So.
I think it literally is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, communication. Communication is key, and transparency.
Yeah, transparency is the right word, and honesty. I mean, a lot of times you tell people, "Hey, this happened, and we weren't expecting this, and it was sort of unforeseen." If it's your 20th campaign, like it's our 9th, I think. So if we can't figure out the shipping cost, then we're freaking morons, right? Yeah. But if there's something that comes up, there's always something that comes up in each campaign that's unforeseen. So I like to do updates, and what I found is even if the postal hardcover was one we did a few months ago, and we're supposed to fulfill that, I think, in March, and I had told people back in January, whatever it was, that the book was at the printer. We were expecting it back from China in March, et cetera, et cetera. And, a bunch of people have IM'd or emailed and asked about, is going to be delayed because of the coronavirus. And I hadn't even thought about that. So I just went in and posted a new update and said, no, we're still good. We're all going to wear masks when we go to the warehouse and start unboxing it. But, that can't hurt to be safe. Right?
And that's a real thing. I mean, not to vector in politics or whatever with this, but we see so often with our clients and with people we talk to on these podcasts, that factors like tariffs or international relations or viruses, or a few years ago with Fukushima exploding.
Right.
Those factors do play into the delivery of products, and
And you
little
don't
people.
think about them,
Yeah,
acts
and
of God or whatever they are, natural disasters. I mean, and they can screw you up majorly. Like
majorly.
we had a situation, not for a Kickstarter, but for a regular book a few years ago, where we had a new printer approach us and offer us these, discounted prices if we tried to do this. So we moved a book over there and printed it. Turned out they didn't know how to do the glue binding correctly. So when this book had shipped and it had already been distributed to everyone all over the country and all over the world, and the glue was not properly in the binding, so the second somebody opened the book, all the pages fell out.
Oh wow.
And the shitty part of that is it, it sucks because we paid them, we had it delivered, we freighted it from China, and then the product is defective, and then what do you do? I
Right.
mean, because at that point, do you recall it and reprint it? We're not like a Fortune 500 company. That's a tremendous expense for us,
Yeah.
and it causes problems. So there's always going to be unforeseen things. And I think just kind of rolling with it and trying to be, like I said, transparency is a great word. I like
Yep.
that word a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of our listeners might be thinking about doing crowdfunding for the first time, and a lot of these discussions are on what you did to prepare for a successful campaign. I think what's really interesting is we're really deep diving into post-campaign success. And if you are going to be successful in the front end, these are as important, if not more important, best practices to follow. With
Right.
that note, let's talk a little bit about what you did to make sure this one crossed the finish line. Did you do any sort of pre-launch activity or
Yeah, we
announcement to the
do.
audience?
Yeah, we do a countdown. I think like we'll say and I think people are used to the fact that because we've done, like I said, it's our 9th campaign, so we've done this before where we show on all our social media T-5 days, T-4 days, and we'll have like an image of what the thing is. We won't necessarily explain what it is, but that's sort of our, cue to our fan base that something is going to be there. We don't do a lot of pre-press. And the reason why is because I found that you need that call to action because we've done pre-press before and people would see the article, but they would have no way to go and immediately buy it. I mean, we're in sort of this real-time culture now where
Yeah.
everything is immediate, so we sort of blitzkrieg all our press once the situation is live. Once the campaign is actually live and people can go on and pledge, that's when we do sort of our initial blitzkrieg of press.
Yep.
And, we funded, we did our funding, the 100% funding in the first 4 hours. And so we were kind of shocked at how quickly it happened. But when you do that, it sort of works. And I found that and these aren't exact numbers, but about a third of our campaigns historically have been in the first 2 or 3 days. And then the last third is in the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And so you have like the middle 25 days is the other third, and it sort of drags.
Yeah.
And I've thought about shortening the length of campaigns, and I've been repeatedly told don't do it.
Really?
Because people have different paydays and they might have different bills.
Yeah.
And,
So this is great. This is a conversation we have all the time. So the third strategy, they're not even exactly thirds. I would break it into the first 20%, the last 20%, and then the middle 60%. And we call that middle 60% the trough of despair. And if you look at most, if you look at
That's
most,
funny. I love that.
yeah, if you do look at most campaigns on a tool like Bigger Cake or for board games and publishing KickTrack, you'll see that arc where you have that really successful first couple of days, and then it's just trickles.
Yeah.
And that trough of despair is where people start to have that fear, uncertainty, and doubt of, are they doing the right thing? And
Right.
especially if you didn't like blow away your goal in those first couple of days, that trough of despair could be a real nail biter.
Yeah.
And
No, it can.
so what we recommend to most project managers and creators is, what you want to do is try to shorten the trough of despair as much as possible, right? So if you're going to have a 45-day or a 60-day campaign, it's not like you're going to lengthen that first 20%. It's
Right.
still going to be the first 48 hours, the first 4 days are where you're going to have the bulk of your pledges, then it's going to fall off. And you're not really gaining a ton until you get to the end. But
right.
So we usually recommend no more than 30 days, but we also pay attention to what we call the Friday calendar of like trying to guess. All right, if we're launching at the beginning of a month, we want to try to have at least 2, if not 3, bi-weekly Fridays fall into that. And
Oh, okay.
it's so sometimes a campaign might be 28 days because
Right.
that's how it laid on the calendar, or it might be 32 days simply because
Right.
we wanted to capture that third Friday. But the reality is that doesn't matter because Kickstarter doesn't take your money until the campaign ends anyway. But it is this
Right.
psychological factor that people have of a reluctance to pledge maybe when they don't have the funding available yet, you know, and
Yeah.
knowing. So, but yeah, the longer campaigns just prolong things. And the other thing too is if you're running Facebook ads, all you're doing is adding an expense for that longer trough to spare because you got to continue your ads going for that amount of time, and they might get stale. You know, if you don't have fresh
Right.
content, if you don't have a strong retargeting strategy, you're kind of burning some dollars for a very little return. Yeah,
we don't do actually any advertising at all for our Kickstarter campaigns. It's all through our own social media and through press. Fortunately for us, you know, we have a pretty significant fan base and a pretty significant reach.
right.
So we've actually, I don't think we've ever bought an ad for any of our campaigns.
That's interesting. You know, when you have a property that, especially IP, like a character or a book or something that has a 25-year following, you may have the luxury of a different ad strategy. You know, our best story with that is we did the Cream documentary about Cream magazine, and you know that had a 50-year, 50-year history of all these rock stars and their legacy fan bases and people that read Cream or were fans of Almost Famous or Lester Bangs. And so, you know, just tapping in to those audiences or seeing someone like, you know, Alice Cooper on screen or Joan Jett on screen did it for you. But when you're introducing something brand new, you have to do Facebook advertising. It's
right. No, I get that.
And I'm really curious.
Have done, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really curious with a character like Witchblade, like how much you would have gotten of targeting Facebook ads to audiences like The Walking Dead or audiences of Wonder Woman or other characters that might discover Witchblade through the success of this campaign versus, you know, a baked-in fan of the character already. You know.
Yeah, and I think we found that you know, I think there are a lot of people that just peruse Kickstarter, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we use it is there are people that don't buy our books outside of Kickstarter, and we've actually done original books. Like I've actually written and published 4 different books that were not based on legacy characters at all. They were original sort of stories and ideas that I did through Kickstarter, and those all funded as well. It's a good question. I think for us, we, you know, we've done things in the past where we've spent money in advertising, and I don't know why, but in comic books, it's like, where do you spend it? You know, I mean, the thing is with our Facebook and our social media reach, we do have the corporate feeds and the corporate pages, which they're throttled to where, you know, a lot of people don't see them without advertising. But most of the interaction we get on our feeds is from either my personal Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or from Marc Silvestri's and the other people that work on these books. So we do know that they get seen. You know, it's a good question. I think for us we haven't needed it. You know, so you know, but maybe I'll try it. I don't know. You give me something to think about.
I mean, we had this October we ran a Dracula book, which was again legacy. It was based on Bram Stoker, and they had the involvement of the Stoker estate. And the whole idea was, you know, the Dracula book was told as a series of field notes and investigative tools, and they redid the book as that. So, you know, there's some of the book is on a record, some of the book is in handwritten notes, and it was all packaged. And you know, we definitely raised over,
Sorry,
you know, definitely a 6-figure raise.
Wow.
And that was really a large part of the publisher's built-in audience, Beehive Books. but probably 20 to 30% did come from targeting people that knew of Dracula, weren't necessarily fans of Beehive books or their legacy, or buying a property in this way, and showing them a new way to experience it. And that's how we did our ads. We didn't spend a lot of energy on the ad trying to convince someone who's already a fan of the medium to come. It was really about discovering new audiences and bringing new people into the fold. And
I think for us, we've experimented with Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, and Twitter ads, and all these things to try to sell different books over the years that were books that were available either through our own stores or through not through Kickstarter, but through our own fulfillment houses. And we just not had a lot of success with translating that into sales. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. I think that, there's definitely in this category, there's a cap. It's not necessarily seeing the wild success of board games or multiple multi-million-dollar campaigns.
Right.
But I do think, the chances that you'll touch six figures are pretty high. And once you hit that last third of your campaign in a few days here. And, definitely I do think that is a bar that's achievable if more people do look at what level of strategy Facebook advertising and social media marketing can complement the already best practice of using your well-deserved audience. In that.
Because they give metrics and the analytics you can look at from Facebook where they say that you had this many people come in and pledge from this is where they came from.
Yeah.
And I look at that, and almost half of them come from either my own social media feeds, my personal ones, not the corporate ones, or Marc Silvestri's personal feeds as well. So we're blasting out to our own readership, followers, fans, whatever you want to call them, and they just go in and they buy it.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of having done that hard work in the campaign number 1 and campaign number 2, and doing what you're talking about on the back end of being transparent, fulfilling, and when problems arise, communicating with your audience so that you can count on them for campaign 7, 8, 9. And what's coming.
Yeah, you just build. There's loyalty. It's just like anything. It's brand loyalty. It's it comes in a lot of things, and no one likes being gypped.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, Matt, you guys got a killer product. A great character. It's funny. I remember that show. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like I've seen it, but with the sultriness of the character, I feel like it's something in the zeitgeist. Like, oh yeah, I remember commercials for that. That makes sense. Yeah, but
no, it was a good show, and it has the weird privilege of being the highest rated TV show on TNT ever to be canceled. So whatever.
So many good shows canceled.
I know.
Oh man, yeah. Well, yeah, boy, Netflix is killing me with that right now. Let me tell you. Yeah, but all right, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about. There's as of recording this, there's 10 days left to pledge, and this thing airs. You'll probably be in your last 3 days. How do people find you? What should they be focused on in your Kickstarter?
Well, the Kickstarter is it's in the graphic novel section. It's a Witchblade hardcover, and that's really the main thing to get. There are some add-ons. We added some stretch goals to get some free stuff. There's some other stuff you can buy. No, excuse me. If you want some pens, a T-shirt, that kind of stuff, there's all kinds of that stuff you can get. And there's different packages that include. But the basic tier is a $50 tier. It's the hardcover, and it's all the hardcovers are signed by Marc Silvestri, which is hard to get because he doesn't actually do a lot of conventions.
Nice.
So my signature is actually really easy to get because I do like 20 a year. So people, my signature is worthless, but Marc's is worth a lot, and he's signing all these for free. So all 800 backers and however many more backers we get will get their hardcover actually signed by him for free. And we'll be getting these. In fact, these books were just delivered. See, the thing is, here's the crazy part. These books were just delivered to our warehouse yesterday. So, we took a flyer and gambled and figured and took a guess as to how many we would do and sell. And we were accurate. So
that's fantastic. So
it's good to know your business.
Yeah. So, are you going to do any post-funding activities when this thing ends? Any Indiegogo on demand or anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't even realize until I started seeing people do it that you could do a Kickstarter and then launch the same exact thing on Indiegogo, and no one seems to care about that. We're talking to CrowdOX and BackerKit about trying to see about extending out. We've not done any of those yet. I was a little shocked at some of the expense of some of
Yeah.
those and what they're offering, because they take a percentage of your entire campaign.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's worthwhile. I've talked to a few people, like Brian Polito is a good buddy of mine, and he runs a lot of campaigns on Kickstarter for Lady Death. And he uses CrowdOX, and he says it creates a community and allows people that pledge to buy additional copies after the fact. So he sort of thinks that that's a good deal. We've
Yeah.
never done that.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you, those are definitely, if you can justify the expense, those are great services. Not to pitch one of our things, but what we talk about in our crowdfunding roadmap is the way to launch your own Shopify. So that as long as you've got fulfillment down, it sounds like you guys are a great candidate for this, is doing the similar activities. And you can take your Kickstarter page once you're done and point it right back to a Shopify store and handle your own post funding and kind of cut out the middleman. So that might be a great strategy for you guys to take a look at. And
I was just writing that down. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
The OX and the I just the amount that they're taking. I understand they're providing a service. I haven't really had a chance to run the numbers to see if it's actually worthwhile.
Yeah.
We're considering doing one on this campaign just as a test, but that's a good idea. I'll look into that thing.
Yeah, I think our 2 cents is, a lot of the companies that are in this space try to do great jobs for the customers, and I think both of those services definitely qualify as that. Think about the mentality of a project creator. If you're a first-time creator and you've had a wildly successful campaign, and now you've got to tackle building 1,000 units of your widget or whatever, and try to figure out how to get them out to backers and fulfill, these
Right.
companies might be your lifesaver, because you're going to be so full of making your product that doing the back end is just going to be another headache. But if you're a company that's really solid at fulfilling products, you may want to consider doing it yourself and taking the plunge into digital marketing and doing a Shopify page. Yeah.
I think we will, and I will thank you for that. And if you ever come to Los Angeles, I'll buy you dinner as a thanks, because we do have our own topcowstore.com, and we sell all this stuff on our own store. So we are constantly doing fulfillment. And so it'd be very easy for us to do additional fulfillment on our own.
Yeah, I think you guys you'd be a great candidate for that. And we talk a lot about this in some of our other areas of Woodshed, and more than happy to share best practices on a call with you on that. But for all the listeners out there, if you're a first-time creator and you've had a wildly successful campaign and you're sitting on 1,000+ units you got to deliver, give these 2 companies a look. They might save your tail. But if you feel like you've got a good handle on fulfillment, let's talk about Shopify. Let's talk about
because comic books are interesting because you can't send them damaged even slightly.
No.
I mean, people don't want like I've gotten novels sent to me from Amazon and they're a little bent or whatever, but I just read it. Who cares?
Right.
But comic books are bagged and boarded and collected, put on people's shelves. They're considered collectibles on top of being just something that you read. So you need to know how to fulfill it and how to do it to where it doesn't show up bent.
Exactly.
That's the one thing I've had, because I do pledge a lot of independent Kickstarters just for my own sake and because I'm curious. And I've gotten a lot of them that have been bent. Like they're just shipped in like a flat USPS envelope. And then whatever during the process, I got one time that had a tire print on it, and that actually made me kind of laugh. I kept it just to show people. I'm like, this is funny. It's I don't know if the UPS truck drove over it or it really had a tire print across the comic.
That you're touching on a great point. That back to what you were leading with doing fulfillment properly and making sure that you can keep a backer community, is you really have to make sure that the culture of the community you're shipping to, those standards are adhered to on every step of the process. And that's probably a great example of, I know how it is. You're a first-time creator or a new creator. You're watching that bank account drain as you're paying your shipping fees, your freight fees, your printer, your colorist. And when you get down to, okay, what are the materials I'm going to pick to ship in? And maybe if you didn't do your front end right, you dip it into your personal finances and you cheap out on that envelope. Although you did everything right, up until that point, that one little decision could be the thing that ruins it for you. And
well, I mean, it's like that book I told you about where the pages all fell out. You know, the people that buy that book, and they might buy it from Barnes and Noble. You know, they may not buy it from us directly. They don't blame Barnes and Noble. They don't blame the Chinese printer. They blame us.
exactly.
You know, because we're the product creator.
Yep.
And it sucks because we don't have anything to do with that process. And you know, you're always trying to save money in a business, and I'm a little more hesitant to use new printers now for that reason. And we sort of have stuck with some of the printers we use now for the last 20, 25 years. But there are delays. I mean, and that's where we talked earlier about transparency is delays. If we had not taken kind of a flyer and guessed how many of these we would have sold and printed it early before we sent this book to press before the campaign even started. So we kind of had an idea of what
talking
we
about calling your shot, right?
Yeah. But see, if we had not, the book would be delayed a month or two because we have other books that are in the queue after that are now being delayed by a month or two because of the coronavirus.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you know, the last little bit of best practices I would share from our experience is, and I just had a lead call earlier today talking about this with a crowdfunder where they undervalued their product, you know, where, you know, they were selling a product for $17 that they could probably sell for $35.
Right.
And the reality is crowdfunding backers, they strike this balance of wanting the product and wanting it at a fair price, right? And they'll show up early like they did for your campaign for like early bird rewards or things like that.
Right.
But there's a willingness to maybe overall pay a little bit more to make sure that the creator has enough money in the bank to do all these steps correctly in between the end of the campaign and fulfillment, right? And undervaluing yourself isn't necessarily about not providing a great value to your potential backer and feeling like you're too greedy. It's really about understanding that there's a lot of variables that either I don't know or like your binding story that you don't control. And if you didn't price accordingly to leave yourself some room to overcome some of those obstacles, at the end of the day, you could deliver something that doesn't meet expectations, and it's just going to be pointed back at you and blamed at you. And unfortunately, who knew that there was going to be a virus? Who knew that binder didn't understand glue? You know,
like, or they were cheap on it. You know, I mean,
and, you know, it's you have to I pound this into creators' heads all the time if they're going to be our clients and they work with us, is you have to value your art, you have to value your product, and you have to make sure that you're charging the right amount. And that isn't necessarily you're charging too much. It's are you factoring in all these things that are going to lead down the road to fulfillment. And luckily, a company like you guys, that you're on your 9th Kickstarter, it's not your first rodeo, you've learned a lot. Now you're in a position where you can call that shot prior to launching a campaign and get the best pricing on your order and your lot. But the only reason you were able to do that is because you did follow those best practices of fulfillment, and you really took care of your audience and made sure that they got what they were expecting in a reasonable amount of time.
And what we found too is the $25 and the $50 price point are the ones that are most frequently used. Other people have told me that, you know, $5 and $10 is the way to go, and not for us. And every case is different, but for whatever reason, I think people that are on Kickstarter are looking around. They just have more disposable income. Otherwise, why are they there anyway? So $25 to $50, and you know, you want to put more stuff in it and try to make it seem like it's a value package, especially when it's a reprint like what we're doing now. But you know, I mean, I definitely don't underprice your product. I mean, because that's a lose. And I've seen it happen many times. I pledged one a few years ago. I don't know if you remember this campaign or heard about this campaign, but the guy was an independent creator for comic books. He had done a campaign and he'd actually printed the books, but he got so mad and so upset about the whole process and everything that he literally dumped all the books into a ditch and burned them and put it on video and put it on his Facebook feed and and he actually posted that in an update on the Kickstarter. And obviously this guy's done in our industry. He's not going to be able to do another one. You know what I mean? But it was just such a, you know, you always talk about things like you're burning your bridge, or you're burning, or you're just,
he took
I
the
saw that.
metaphor.
He took it literally.
Yeah.
And when I saw this, I laughed. I actually laughed. I was like, oh my God. But if you bought into the campaign and you spent $10 and you see this guy's not fulfilling it, he got your money and then he burns the books. I mean, wow. That was so weird to me. That's the only time I've ever seen anything like that.
I bet he felt really good in the moment, though, right?
To each their own. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I'll
just
tell you.
crazy to me.
As a super backer myself, I back a lot of projects, and I am willing to pay that extra premium to take care of a creator, and I don't think I'm alone.
Right.
I think that most backers in this community share that same mindset. So
yeah,
this is to everybody out there. Value yourself, price accordingly for the disasters. Do not burn your product in a ditch. That's bad.
And don't gouge people either. I mean, the other thing I've seen that on a couple campaigns, especially by new people, where they overprice it.
Yeah.
And so there is a weird, balance of where do you find that? And because there was a guy a couple years ago who was pricing a 32-page comic at $25. And I'm just like, the average 32-page comic is $3. I can assume that you could probably go 5 or 10 as part of a Kickstarter by doing some extra stuff, making exclusive or limited or whatever.
Right.
But jacking that up to $25, I just looked at that. His campaign failed. It didn't even achieve its minimum, and he shut it down after a week and didn't, But I was looking at that, and it was sort of one of those reminders that the opposite is true as well. There is a range that you can go in.
Yep, definitely. All right, man. Well, the project is fantastic. Witchblade, household character name. The art looks fantastic. I love the idea of the exclusive dust cover on the hardcover, and you guys are doing it right, man.
Thanks, man.
All right, well, go fulfill those rewards. Put on that dust mask for that coronavirus.
Yeah.
That's no joke.
We're actually going to the warehouse tomorrow to do it. So
snorkel. I would do the whole thing, man. All right, my friend. Man. Good luck to you guys. Everyone, check them out. Witchblade on Kickstarter, and possibly Shopify afterwards. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll look into that today. You gave me something to do today.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.